Recording in progress.
For joining us this evening. Thank you, we really appreciate it. Thank you to all our wonderful and outstanding panelists.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde pour nous avoir rejoints aujourd'hui à cet événement de ce soir. Merci infiniment également à nos prestigieux conférenciers qui ont bien voulu accepter de se joindre à nous pour aborder ce sujet tant important et pertinent concernant l'inclusion. Merci tout le monde.
We appreciate you all for joining on early. We're starting now and we're sending virtual welcome. One welcome to every one of you. Thank you so much. And we will be starting with the anthem.
Donc, merci encore une fois et puis on vous souhaite la bienvenue à tout le monde qui sont en face de leur écran pour suivre cet événement chaleureux. Donc, nous commencerons par les hymnes nationaux en anglais et en français. Merci.
Welcome, Baba, to lead us in the anthem. Thank you, Baba, for that wonderful rendition.
Merci beaucoup, Baba, pour cette prestation très, très appréciée. Merci.
So what are we going to be doing today? We're just going to quickly run through the agenda so that everybody knows what to expect.
Donc, on va faire d'abord commencer par parler de l'agenda d'aujourd'hui pour que chacun sache de quoi on va s'attendre ce soir.
So the agenda. Okay. So this is what the agenda will look like. And after the agenda, we will be having the land acknowledgement. And after the land acknowledgement, we'll talk about our supporter and then talk about donation that we're hoping that you will help us with today. And then there will be a welcome address by Elder Stephen Packard and a welcome address from CMP representative and a welcome address about CMP from Ms. Patience Iyase. And these are the amazing and outstanding panelists that will be sharing their insights, their thoughts, their skills, their experiences with us during this 3-day event. Also, CMP is giving awards to leaders, community leaders in the community that are doing small and mighty things in the community in 3 categories: leadership, champions, and community. And today, these are the speakers that you will be listening to and learning from. I've already heard a lot of people say they can't believe that they're in the same panel with Honor Regina Augustine. Thank you so much for joining us. And so we'll go back to the agenda. Okay, so we're gonna start. Again, my name is Ade Jisola. I am the daughter of Aulat, the daughter of Adekbeju, the daughter of Bonidamola, and I introduce myself this way to recognize the First Nations because they introduce themselves with their maternal to the third generation.
Bonsoir tout le monde, bonsoir, merci beaucoup. Mon nom est Lamine Diallo. Je suis d'origine sénégalaise et puis impliqué dans la communauté africaine et afro-caribéenne en général ici à Toronto. Donc, je suis vraiment très, très sensible à tout ce qui fait appel à l'inclusion, à la diversité. Donc, c'est la raison pour laquelle je suis impliqué dans cette aventure. Donc, je suis ici au Canada, ça fait pratiquement une quarantaine d'années. Je suis venu au Canada comme étudiant international. Après avoir fait mon doctorat, je suis venu travailler ici à Toronto. Donc, je suis vraiment très, très heureux et honoré de faire partie de cette aventure grandiose et de cette aventure d'actualité concernant l'inclusion. Merci.
So what are we talking about today? Power of inclusion. What is the fuss about? That is the overarching theme of what we're doing for the next 3 days. Why are we talking about it? What is the importance? And that is why we have all these leaders join us to come and peel back the onions and talk to us about this. And hopefully everyone on the line will be joining in the conversation too.
Aujourd'hui, on va parler de ce sujet d'actualité, de ce sujet d'importance qui est l'inclusion. Comme vous le savez, l'inclusion vise à rassembler les communautés et les leaders d'opinion pour avoir une conversation franche et cruciale sur l'inclusion, son importance dans notre communauté canadienne en général. C'est notre façon de montrer notre participation à cette mission. C'est aussi une occasion d'encourager nos communautés à devenir beaucoup plus inclusives, à apprendre d'autres cultures et enfin à faire de l'inclusion le mantra du Canada en tant que pays. Merci infiniment. Je suis convaincu aujourd'hui, vous entendrez des conférenciers de choix, des conférenciers de haute facture qui viennent de divers horizons, qui vont vraiment vous mettre tout ce qui est à rapport à l'inclusion aujourd'hui. Merci infiniment et nous vous souhaitons une bonne conférence ce soir.
And each day has a sub-theme. The theme for today is breaking down barriers. And tomorrow it continues. And the theme for tomorrow is envisioning a brighter future. And on the third day, which is Saturday, the theme is inclusive leadership.
Aujourd'hui, jour 1, on va parler de comment briser les barrières au niveau de l'inclusion. Et demain, nous parlerons du deuxième thème avec d'autres conférenciers encore de choix pour faire part de leur vision pour le futur au niveau de l'inclusion. Et le dernier jour, on va parler de tout ce qui est de leadership, tout ce qui est en rapport avec le leadership au niveau de l'inclusion. Je demeure convaincu que nous aurons bien servi avec tous ces panélistes de haute qualité, de haute facture. Merci.
Without further ado, we're going to be calling on a couple of people here to talk about the land acknowledgement. At Council of Nigerian Professionals, we believe in giving honor to whom honor is due. And so I'll be calling on Kayla Iyase. She's a media volunteer and former business development officer with CMP. She was the winner of Black History Month Essay Contest, and as well as one of the winners of the 2021 TD Bex Youth Hackathon. Please give a warm virtual welcome to Kayla Iyase. And Dr. Diallo will be reading.
In the spirit and intent of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations, we acknowledge the traditional Indigenous territories on which we gather at the beginning of all CNP meetings. By learning, understanding, and acknowledging, we wish to pay respect to Turtle Island, Mother Earth, and to the rich Indigenous history of Ontario. We recognize that our work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories across Ontario. We also wish to acknowledge that the CNP head office is located on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. This territory is a part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, an agreement between the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, and Allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This territory is also covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. We wish to express gratitude to Mother Earth and for the resources we are using, and honor all the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on the land since time immemorial.
Merci infiniment, Mademoiselle Kaila, pour cette prestation de la Terre des reconnaissances en anglais. Et je me fais l'honneur de vous lire maintenant la Terre des reconnaissances en français. Dans l'esprit et l'intention des recommandations de la Commission de vérité et réconciliation, nous reconnaissons les territoires autochtones traditionnels sur lesquels nous nous réunissons au début de toutes les réunions du CNP. En apprenant, en comprenant et en reconnaissant, nous souhaitons rendre hommage à Turtle Island, terre-mère et à la riche histoire autochtone de l'Ontario. Nous reconnaissons que nos travaux se tiennent sur les territoires autochtones traditionnels de l'Ontario. Nous tenons également à souligner que le siège social de CNP est situé sur le territoire autochtone traditionnel des Huron-Wendat, des Haudenosaunee et plus récemment sur le territoire des Mississaugas de New Credit. Ce territoire fait partie du traité Dish with One Spoon, un accord entre les Anishinaabe, les Haudenosaunee et les nations alliées, et ce, pour partager et entretenir pacifiquement les ressources autour des Grands Lacs. Ce territoire est également couvert par les traités du Haut-Canada. Nous souhaitons exprimer notre gratitude à la Terre-Mère et pour les ressources que nous utilisons, et honorer tous les peuples des Premières Nations, Métis et Inuits, qui vivent sur la Terre depuis des terres immémoriaux. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kayla Iyase and Dr. Diallo. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Elder Stephen Paquette. Elder Stephen Paquette is an elder in the Indigenous community. He is a friend of many organizations and multicultural groups. He's a leader, a volunteer, and an advocate for diversity and inclusion. Please give a warm welcome to Elder Stephen Paquette.
Ani, Boju, Sego, Tanzi, Wachea, Hi, Kwe. I give greetings to you in just some of the original languages of the original people here on the lands that we call Turtle Island. I want to start off by giving my sincere appreciation for being able to not just be a part of this evening, but to be a part of the work that this organization is doing. The power of inclusion. Wow, what a powerful message. The power of being able to come together in a good way with good minds and good hearts. I want to give thanks for that acknowledgement of the lands on which everyone lives on here on Turtle Island. It speaks to good relationships. So I just want to say Chimigwich, which means thank you very much for acknowledging that. I want to start off by sharing some words in our Indigenous traditions and culture when we would come together with good minds and with good hearts. We were told that we were doing work in a good way. And I want to acknowledge that that is what is taking place this evening. That we are all coming together with good minds and good hearts to further this work in a good way. So In our traditional First Nations way, we would always have some opening words or the words that come before all others to start our coming together in a good way. And so I would humbly offer these words to everyone here this evening. First off, it's my intention to acknowledge everybody's spirit here this evening, your spirits. I want to acknowledge each and every single one of your ancestors. I want to acknowledge the lands of your ancestors. And I find in this day and age that sometimes that we've lost contact with that and we forget where we came from. But the beautiful thing is that this evening is that I believe that ancestors are with you here tonight. They're listening to your words. They're whispering little words of guidance to you, and that they're going to be with you on this journey that you're on. So my opening words would be, Ani Creator, it's I, Bamanse Bamat Windinase Gijnikaj Makwa Dodem. I give thanks for this beautiful gift of today. I give thanks for this opportunity to come together with all of these beautiful people in a good way, with good minds and good hearts. We give thanks for that opportunity to be together in each other's company. We acknowledge each other's spirit and ancestors. We give thanks for this beautiful opportunity to come together, to learn and to share. We know that we do this not for ourselves right now, Creator, but we do so thinking of 7 generations ahead. And that while Canada has a storied past, we all know that Canada is a country of great potential. And that the work that we're doing here over the next couple of days will help lead us to Canada's potential that it's capable of. For all of this, Creator, we come together with one mind and one heart, and we give thanks. Miigwech, 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 miigwech. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elder Parker. Really, really appreciate you. Thank you for doing the needful. Being thankful is really, really important. We know what we've gone through in the past 2 years. And we know. Thank you so much again, Elder Paquette. I hope everybody can hear me now. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for your support as always, and for giving thanks. It's important for us to give thanks. We know what we've gone through in the past 2 years, and standing here today healthy with all our family and friends, it's amazing. Thank you very much, Nate.
Merci, Elder Stéphane Paquette, pour avoir pris le temps de venir nous rejoindre aujourd'hui et faire votre mot de bienvenue. Ça a été un grand plaisir de vous entendre et puis d'entendre vos mots très pertinents sur le sujet et sur l'histoire canadienne d'une façon générale. Merci encore une fois et ça a été un grand plaisir. Merci.
And so now I'll be calling on Mr. Adefunlola Oni for the welcome address from Council of Nigerian Professionals. Funlola Oni is an experienced senior transaction banker, currently with one of Canada's top banks. He has over 20 years experience covering financial services sector in Africa, Europe, and North America. Industry experience garnered while at a British international bank prior to his move to Canada. During this time, he held several roles in trade finance, cash and liquidity management, lending, compliance, and relationship management. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics and an MBA from Warwick Business School. Please welcome Mr. Adefunlola Oni.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, a very good evening to everyone, distinguished guests and panelists. We warmly welcome you to the maiden edition of The Power of Inclusion. This event, organized by the Council of Nigerian Professionals, is a 3-day event themed around what the force is about inclusion. It aims at discussing the realities, benefits, and what needs to be done collectively to achieve a truly inclusive society. According to Nelly Borrero, a highly respected executive and leader, diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice we make every day. And leaders with organizations have to put out the message that we embrace and not just tolerate diversity. Personally, as I've had the opportunity to live and work in 3 different continents, Africa, Europe, and now North America and Canada, I dare say that I have seen different shades and degrees of inclusivity issues for minorities in spheres of life, including the workplace. On several occasions, there's been the perceived lack of inclusion as a result of differences in race, color, orientation, and sometimes background when it comes to getting equal opportunities for roles, promotions, or wage parity. So is this reality or just a perception? The need to discuss inclusivity therefore stems from the fact that there are recognizable differences in people and there are unconscious biases in life. So ensuring that there's a level playing field for all must be a deliberate act by all. So what is the fuss about inclusion and its benefits? Well, that's why we are here tonight. As already highlighted, we have a lineup of outstanding distinguished speakers who will today discuss and elaborate on how to break those barriers to inclusion, what needs to be broken down. Tomorrow, the speakers will focus on envisioning a brighter future and what needs to be done in the short to the long term. And on the last day is all about inclusive leadership. So what's my personal take on inclusion? In the words of Stephen Covey, strength lies in differences and not similarities. I align completely with this, and I believe it. The world would be a better place if everyone is allowed to contribute their quota without fear or bias. This, therefore, is a call to action to all decision makers and organizations alike on the subject. I want to use this opportunity again to thank everyone for being here. We appreciate your presence and encourage you to join in the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Funlola Oni. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And now I'm going to be calling on Patience Iyase to tell us more about Council of Nigerian Professionals. Patience Iyase is a coach with a burst of energy that fills every room she walks into. She's a community server who believes that humility plus a daily dose of prayers makes a delightful human. She is currently the Vice President of Council of Nigerian Professionals, and I can tell you, it is a joy to work with Patience Iyase. Please give Patience Iyase a warm virtual welcome.
Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, amazing humans. Who is excited to be here? I know I am. I know you are as well. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us. We really, really do appreciate each and every one of you. Now, I'm here today to tell you about CNP, the why, the what, and the how of CNP. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. CNP was started out of lived experiences of people in our community with the intent of supporting one another in our career, settling in and flourishing in Canada. People migrate to Canada with high hopes, great expectations, and willingness to do what it takes to add value. These expectations quickly become a dream, a mirage as a culture shock, and unforeseen obstacles take over the initial euphoria. Our founder, Lady Abba, that's what I fondly call her, Adejisola Atiba, nurtured the plan. on August 31st, 2018. The what? What is CMP? CMP is a non-profit, non-religious organization dedicated to the empowerment of African professionals and every other person that comes to Canada as an immigrant. We equip and support the development and prosperity in Canada. CMP is becoming or is now a household reference point for individuals alike. Martin Luther King once said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Our strategic goals include, but not limited to, supporting the holistic well-being of individuals, marriages, families, enhancing leadership, career, business, and development of members, providing support to new immigrants and international students, providing training, information on socioeconomic and professional empowerment, providing programs that enhance children from grade 2 to 12, understanding Canada's multiculturalism, and providing support, seminars, event, mentorship to individuals. Whoever saves one life saves the entire world. Now at CMP, we realize that knowledge has power. It controls access, opportunity, and enhancement. John F. Kennedy once said, the greater our knowledge increases, the more our ignorance unfolds, which is why CNP is heavily invested in impacting knowledge through our different events scattered all through the year. We have our live and series events, which talk about socioeconomic, professional, and business empowerment. We have a leadership series, which encourage, motivates, build, and inspire existing and new leaders. We have a newcomer series, which was called Learn and Thrive. Thrive in the sense that we want people to migrate to come to Canada and thrive, not just survive. We also have our language schools. Right now, we've run the first set and we're currently running the second one of languages such as French, Mandarin, Igbo, and Yoruba. We have our CMP virtual summer camps, coding class, and our mentoring sessions. Now, what is our impact? CMP's impact includes supporting people get jobs. We've matched over 200 mentees and mentors, supported local businesses to be better scaled. We've organized language schools with over 150 students in attendance. We've provided school supplies to over 250 students. We've provided raw food to over 500 families on the onset of COVID-19, donated funds to charitable organizations, hired 12 community members and students. Consistently over the summer breaks, we've had and still have over 30 volunteers. I'm proud to include, we also have lifetime volunteers. You will say how, but yes, CMP did it. You would find a detailed list of events scheduled for 2022 in the folders on the day 3. Yeah, I said day 3 on purpose. It's a 3-day event. On the third day, our event is on there. But if you can't wait, go to our website, info@cmpngo.ca for a live memo of all individuals narrating their experiences with CMP. Our goals, our future goals are not limited to, we hope to include volunteers from different parts of the world. Diversity is sure, but we also want to make inclusion a surety as well. We plan to have an increased focus in supporting our children and youth by co-creating programs and events with our youth volunteers to better align to their needs. 2022 will see CMP continue with all our various events, expand the children and youth program, support small business in the community with structure and planning, increase mentoring, increase partnering and collaboration with various organizations. My ask today is join CMP as we continue to empower, equip, build our community, and impact Canada positively and collectively. Be a voice, not an echo. Own your power. Stay tuned and yourself for what's about to happen. You're about to listen I'm being mesmerized by the most exemplary panel you ever know. The next 1 hour, 45 minutes will be the best you're going to spend your life. I promise you. Thank you all for being here. And I'm going to take my seat and listen and enjoy.
Wow, wow. I'm electrified. Patience. Thank you so much, Patience. If I didn't know anything about CMP, I'm on. Just sign me on. So right now, we just quickly want to do a shout out to a supporter. We're able to do this in grand style because RBC Royal Bank supported this initiative. And actually today is a very, very great day for me as an individual because I work for Royal Bank of Canada and because they always focus on supporting the community. So wherever you are, whether you are online or you're listening to us through our YouTube channel, please, I want you to raise some hand. Thumbs up for RBC. Thank you so much. And so next one, I really want to talk about, making sure that nobody's left behind. We would really, really appreciate you donating to Council of Nigerian Professionals because we don't want to let anybody to be left behind. When I came to Canada, I did not know that there are people that actually are in need. I thought it was something that will happen in Africa. But I learned that people's situations are different. And so Knights Table is an organization in Brampton that actually gives foodstuffs and a hot meal 365 days a year to the needy. So please, if you want to donate, please go to www.cmpngo.ca and click on Power of Inclusion on our donate page. And everything we receive during these 3 days, 50% will be going to Knights Table. Thank you for your contribution.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, merci Madame Patience pour cette brillante et électrifiante prestation en parlant du CNP. Je pense que vous avez fait votre devoir de faire connaître le CNP autour du monde. Encore une fois aussi, nous remercions le support de RBC, la Banque royale du Canada, pour son soutien inconditionnel et pour CNP. Merci beaucoup à la Banque royale du Canada. Il faut aussi souligner que nous, CNP, nous avons cette opportunité de faire des dons au niveau d'une entité ici dans la ville où se tient cet événement. Donc, nous vous invitons généreusement de faire appel à votre générosité, de faire un don à CNP et 50% des recettes iront à cette entité qui sert les personnes les plus démunies dans la région et ils font des repas 365 jours par année pour aider les gens qui sont les plus démunis. Donc, nous faisons appel à vous pour faire ce don-là. Merci infiniment et nous vous remercions encore sans plus tarder.
And so one final thing before we go to what you're here for today, we're just gonna put on a short quiz, 2 questions. We know we have people joining from all over the country, all over the world actually. So we're gonna be doing this 2-minute short quiz. We'll just give 2 minutes for that, or maybe 1. They're just 2 questions, and we will take it down and start what you came for. So hold on for 1 quick sec. Thank you so much for giving us that very long 2 minutes. Now for the moment that you're here for. A lot of people are seeing all these amazing leaders online. I don't know who they are. If you don't know who they are, we're going to make you know who they are today. But most of them, really, you should know who they are. Guess what? I would recommend that you actually go on LinkedIn or whatever social media you're on. I'm sure they're all very agile. You know, a lot of young people that I'm looking at here, they're 20s, 30s, and they're looking wonderful. Just give them a very, very loud clap right now, just to welcome all our panelists. Thank you so much for your time, your passion, your support for the community. We really, really appreciate it.
Merci, merci infiniment. Certainement, vous imaginez, mais quels sont ces panélistes de haute facture qui vont venir nous parler de l'inclusion aujourd'hui? Vous serez surpris. C'est des panélistes de choix. C'est des panélistes qui viennent d'horizons divers. C'est des panélistes qui ont eu à faire de l'inclusion un de leurs sujets de prédilection, de choix. Nous vous demandons de les applaudir virtuellement avec un grand des applaudissements très nourris. Merci infiniment. Merci.
So again, the sub-theme for today is breaking down barriers. All our panelists have a topic that they will be talking to for 5 to 7 minutes. So I do really encourage you to sit back, listen, take notes, and learn from them. And please prepare your questions too. We will take as many questions as possible. So without any further delay, it is my pleasure to introduce Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine. Honorable Jean Augustine made history as the first Black woman elected to Canada's parliament, and she served from 1993 to 2006. Our legislative success includes the historic Black History Month motion and the groundbreaking Famous Five motion. I can go on and on and on. You want to learn more about Honorable Jean Augustine? Please visit our website. Our picture is there, our bio is there, and also you will see our virtual magazine. You will have all the information you need about this amazing and outstanding human being that has impacted not just our generation, but generations to come.
Merci beaucoup, merci. Notre second panéliste, notre seconde conférencière est our second panelist is Mrs. Chris Depensier. As regional president, Chris leads a team of 4,000 employees in providing financial advice and services to RBC's personnel, small business, and commercial clients in Greater Toronto. Chris is passionate about helping youth. She sits on the board of the Children's Aid Foundation of Canada and is also a board member at the Toronto Region Board of Trade. Thank you.
And the next person I'd like to introduce is Reverend Jeff Rock. He is a senior pastor at the Metropolitan Community Church of Toronto, MCCT. MCCT is one of the leading LGBTQ plus affirming churches in Toronto, and the church that performed the first same-sex marriage in Canada on 14 January 2001. He is a board member of CANFA, Canadian Foundation for AIDS Research, and a former chair of the board of CANS, Central Alberta's AIDS Network Society. Please welcome Rock.
Notre prochaine conférence, our next speaker is Mr. Dan Donnelly. He is SVP Compliance at the Canadian Bank and Global Wealth Management at Scotiabank. Please help me welcome Mr. Dan Donnelly. Thank you.
Person I'd like to introduce is Miss Rebecca Pang. She is a Vice President, Commercial Financial Services at RBC. You see why I'm very, very happy and proud today? where she leads a team of relationship managers with a focus on Asian markets in Toronto. They provide commercial banking services, for example, business loans, commercial mortgages, and cash management. And she is an avid volunteer in the community.
Our last panelist today, but not the least, is Mr. Arthur Amadi. He's the head of vision and global youth mobilizer at Youth in Diaspora. He helped organizations and governments unite young people for nation building and national development. Thank you. Help me welcome Mr. Arthur Amadi.
Thank you, Dr. Lamine. And so, over to you, Honorable Jean Augustine. She'll be talking to us today about intersections between anti-Black racism and inclusion. Let's break it down. Over to you, Madam.
Merci beaucoup et bonjour tout le monde. It is a pleasure to be with you. I want to recognize that we've done the land acknowledgement, that we've heard words from our elder, and that we heard also from our president and of CNP, and also we heard the history of CNP. I'm so very pleased, so very happy to be in this auspicious gathering of the who's who in the world of diversity and inclusion and partnership and collaborators in this venture. So I want to compliment each one of you. So what is the fuss about? Can you imagine asking me to speak in 5 minutes about what the fuss is about? I will use my few minutes then to focus on, as the song says, let's start from the very beginning. Let's start by continuing to do what we can to write a history of so many wrongs against Black people. And I can extend that to say indigenous peoples. For hundreds of years, before and after Confederation in 1867, the Black experience in Canada has been largely shaped by systemic anti-Black racism. This has been coupled with the systemic erasure and denial of the historical Black presence, including the great contributions that so many Black people have made. In effect, Black people, women, men, children have been excluded from reaping the very fruits that our forebears or forebearers have sown in this country again and again. Anti-Black racism has much to do with systemic exclusion and how these barriers have shaped the Black experience in Canada over generations. Those barriers are manifested in different aspects of Canadian society. Significantly, education, employment, healthcare, policing, the criminal justice system. And I'm sure as you pursue and peruse over the next 3 days, much will be said about what can be done in those areas. Anyway, let me break it down. There is much research underway, as well as existing reports, and we can go from Statistics Canada through what is done in academia and what is done in several workplaces, including the work of the chair that's in my name at York University for Community and Diaspora. We have data before us right now. We have historians who are pointing out and showing what needs to be done, what the situation is. For example, Black students are 3 times more likely to be expelled from high school than white students. Black university graduates earn only 80% of every dollar earned by white university graduates. Black population with a post-secondary education had a nearly double unemployment rate. Black women are 3 times less likely to have a family doctor. But we can go further and we can look at the negative forces that have exacted a heavy toll. It continues to do damage. And so your discussion about what is the fuss, the power of inclusion, we must look at where we are today, that racism in the workforce continues to pose barriers to employment, as well as impairing career progression for Black people. For young people, systemic racism undermines educational performance, their access to a quality education laden with landmines. For example, in Toronto, the dropout rate for Black students, 23% compared to 12%. But I'm sure as the couple of days progress, you will be looking at some of these things around education quality and accountability and test scores around mathematics and reading and writing and those essential things that enable our young people to reach their full potential. Recent studies in terms of the educators, more Black teachers in the classroom, always the push to ensure that we can see ourselves reflected in the better education, better things around health, the discussion that came out of and the conversations since George Floyd, since the pandemic, since we have seen the essential workers and those who are providing essential services in our community, we know that we have much to do, and we know that this conversation must really go on. And so we need to attract and engage more non-Black allies. And I'm so very pleased, CNP, to see that a number of your presenters are those that come under the category of allies, to recognize what can be done and how we all must work meaningfully to support the goals of fairness and justice and equity for all. And so it takes new thinking. We look at the journey ahead. I reflect on my own path, which I will describe in the words of Maya Angelou, who said, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Or the words of, she said, Lord, help me to change the things I cannot accept, instead of the other way in which we've always done, help me to accept the things I cannot change. It says, help me to change the things I cannot accept. And so the conversation next 3 days are around this. Let's change the things that we cannot accept. There is no single solution that can undo hundreds of years of racism. But there are many actions that we can take, many actions that we can all take to eliminate anti-Black racism. And it starts on the individual level, where we can encourage to speak up, identify inequities, commit to action, giving support and encouragement. And so I want to end by saying that despite the challenges, there is reason for optimism. Despite the narrating of some of the bad things of the past, we can look with optimism to the future. Because our people are resilient, our people are smart, the time is now. So ultimately, we are trying to do, what we are trying to do is good for the future of Canada, for all of our future. My best wishes as we continue to dialogue over the next 3 days. So what is the fuss about? Let's break it down. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mommy. Thank you so much. That was really powerful. So what did I take away? We have to do what we can, period. As ambassadors, as allies, we have to do what we can. We'll use the past to guide us, but the onus is on us, the best that we can for humanity. And it is not even just about Black. It's about Indigenous. It's about LGBTQ+. It's about so many other things that is making people feel excluded. If you have any questions or comments, please use the Q&A and use the chat button, and you can type your comments or questions in the chat. How are you feeling right now? I feel amazing. It's really, really, really a pleasure, Mommy. And thank you so much for contributing to this conversation.
Quelle éloquence, honorable Dr. Jean-Augustin. Quelle éloquence, la façon dont vous avez analysé comment briser les barrières en termes d'inclusion. Ce que j'ai retenu aujourd'hui de ce que vous avez dit, d'une façon pertinente, changeons les choses que nous ne pouvons pas accepter. Comme le disait Martin Luther King, si on ne peut pas faire partie de la solution, dans ce cas-là, on fait partie du problème. Et honorable Dr. Jean-Augustin, vous êtes en train de nous dire, faisons partie de la solution. Merci infiniment. Je pense que vous nous avez convaincus aujourd'hui. Merci.
And so it's with utmost pleasure again that I want to introduce the next speaker. She's already been introduced. Introduce our topic, Miss Chris Depensier. She's a person after my heart. Thank you so much for joining today. The topic she's going to be talking on is, why is diversity and inclusion the topic of conversation? Why now? And why is it relevant to future of work?
La prochaine conférence. La prochaine conférencière, Chris Depensier.
Sorry about that, Jim's cues. Good evening, everyone, and it's an honor to be with all of you this evening and to be part of kicking off what is going to be a really exciting couple of days. And it's a privilege to be able to follow you, Honorable Jean Augustine. I don't know if you remember, the last time we met was at an RBC event where we had a number of students that had written essays in support of Black History Month. And one of the young ladies that had written her submission had written about you. And I had the opportunity to bring her over and introduce her to you, and she was just over the moon. She could not believe that you were there and that she was able to meet you, an idol. And so I really appreciate being able to share this panel tonight with you. I agree with you. I thought the way we kicked off the session was amazing, and it really does speak to just how far we've come over the last while. And the topic is a really interesting one. You know, what is all the fuss about? And I love the question that you posed to me, which is, why is diversity and inclusion the topic of conversation now? And how does it impact the way we need to think about work? And I did have to pause and think about that, because I thought, well, diversity and inclusion has always been important. It's been something that we've talked a lot about over the last number of years in terms of why having a more diverse community, organization, team, tremendous value, brings new perspectives, helps us better match, the clients and the communities that we serve. But I do think that something has changed over the course of the last 2 years. And I think that the pandemic, for all of the problems and challenges that it posed, really has helped to accelerate the topic of diversity and inclusion, I think in such an important way. And so I was thinking, well, why was that? It was really like the world had stood still. Life as we knew it, the pace, the busyness, it all stopped. And we had a real opportunity to look at us and see what was happening. And it's to think back now and to appreciate everything that started to unfold over the course of the pandemic. And whether it was just pre-pandemic, the hashtag #MeToo movement, or whether it was all of the dialogue around truth and reconciliation, and then, the travesty of seeing what had happened with residential schools, George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, the pandemic outbreak, and seeing the way Asians were treated from China. And I could go on. And I just think all of us had to stop and really pause and say, what is going on in this world? And we really had an opportunity to understand more about what was happening and to understand, the need for change. And, at the same time, I think about the workplace. And while all of this was happening, so many of us were in lockdown, and we were doing lots of calls like this on video. And all of a sudden, we were working from home, and we were working from our kitchen tables, and we were being a lot more human. We were being a lot more real. We were being ourselves. We were understanding the power of connections and learning more about each other and what that meant. And I think we had this sense of needing to belong. And, when you think about diversity and inclusion now, and you think about how it's influencing work, I think organizations and communities and leaders now see the power of inclusion. We see that if we are going to want to attract and maintain the best, we've got to create a workplace where people can be their authentic selves, where people can have deep connections and understand purpose and be part of an organization that has the same that they hold. And that is a place where they can be happy and at their best, and feel like they can contribute. Employees, Canadians, newcomers have choices about where they want to work, particularly today. And so we all need to do a lot more to make sure that we're creating a place where people do feel like they can belong. And certainly I feel privileged, as Adi Jazola said earlier, to be part of an organization. I know there's a number of us on the panel today that feel the same way, where we actually, work at a place where we feel like we belong, and where we focus on making sure people can be at their best. Maybe just, for me personally, I guess I would just add maybe one other thing when I think about inclusion and diversity. When I first joined RBC, our value was diversity. And I remember years ago saying, okay, that's good, but you can be diverse. It doesn't mean you're inclusive. It doesn't mean you're really getting the benefits of diversity. And so I was so excited. I remember thinking it's diversity times inclusion, right? You need both. You can be inclusive, but if you're not diverse, it doesn't really matter. But if you're not inclusive, it doesn't really matter. And so this idea of diversity and inclusion working together hand in hand has really stood out for me. And I also really love the concept of being an ally. And thank you for acknowledging that we have a very diverse group of panelists today. And I think that is important. I think allyship really does matter, but it's not just about being a visible ally. It's about being an active ally. And I think that's the thing that I've learned most over this past year. As leaders, we have a responsibility not just to believe or to support or understand, but we have to put our purpose into action. And we actually have to do things that help create change and help us progress. And, I've had the opportunity this past year to really think about and challenge myself about what taking action means. And I've seen firsthand, the impact that it can have, and it feels good, and it's never enough, and there's more to be done. But I know that if all of us just took more effort to put our allyship into action and to really think about how do we, get at systemic racism, and how do we create more opportunities for people to have dialogue and to grow together. What a better world what a better place, the world would be. And so for me, that's become a big part of my purpose, and something I'm really proud of. And I know I share that with all of the other panelists this evening. And so I do hope over the next 3 days, everybody leaves really understanding what the fuss is about, because it really is an incredibly important topic, and one that I'm thrilled to be able to help support. So thank you very much for having me here, and And I just want to also acknowledge my fellow panelists too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Chris Depensier. It was very, 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 very interesting to hear what you said. You know, and you know, what I learn, take from it, it's diversity doesn't necessarily mean inclusion, which is very powerful. You know, diversity, Mrs. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Reverend Jeff Rocky. He'll talk about my story, my path, and he will take us to few key lessons for those experiencing non-inclusion. Thank you very much, and to you, Reverend Jeff Rock. Thank you. Reverend Jeff Rock. Thank you.
Well, good evening, folks. It's a real pleasure to be here, especially sharing on a panel with the Honorable Jean Augustin. I feel completely and utterly humbled to be here. But my job for this evening is to share a little bit about my story. So as you heard, I'm Reverend Jeff Rock. I'm the senior pastor at the Metropolitan Community Church of Toronto. But I was born in a small town called Sudbury, Ontario, which is 4 hours north of here. And I had a very normal Canadian childhood. We had a 2-car garage, a dog, a cat. I have an older brother named Chris. We played hockey on Saturdays and we went to church on Sundays. It's just what we did. Your sort of typical Canadian experience. Only for me, I happen to have grown up as a young gay man. I came out of the closet as an openly gay kid at the age of 14 years old. And the place where I found love and inclusion and belonging was actually at my church. The minister at my church would do sermons every once in a while about how God loves LGBTQ people. We would talk openly about HIV and AIDS. We had connections with a congregation in Zambia and had a guest preacher, and we did pulpit exchanges from there. For me, the church was the place where I found not just diversity in opinions and beliefs and backgrounds, but also real inclusion and real belonging. So for me, faith community has always been centered on that notion of community, right? That notion of different people coming together, but learning and growing from each other. And now I'm the senior pastor at the Metropolitan Community Church of Toronto, which is sort of this large, boisterous congregation in the city's East End. It was founded about 50 years ago, primarily by gay and lesbian people. But since that time, over the last 50 years, it's really become a nexus of diversity and inclusion. We are extremely multicultural. There are dozens and dozens of countries of origin. We have congregants who are Black, who are Asian, who are South Asian, who are South American, who are Indigenous. Yes, we still are rooted largely as an LGBTQ2+ congregation, but we really are this multifaceted group. There are about a dozen people who identify as Jewish that come to a Christian church every week. We've got a huge high school that meets in our building. It's a Toronto District public school, and they provide the teachers, but we cover all the expenses. It's an LGBTQ2+ school. It's existed for 25 years. And we also have a refugee program. We are Canada's only LGBTQ2+ exclusive sponsorship agreement holder with the federal government, which gives us the opportunity to sponsor refugees to come to Canada. But also as part of our refugee program, we have something called an asylum seekers program. And that's for people who come to Canada's shores, whether by plane or by boat or by foot, and they ask for asylum when they arrive in Canada. And our refugee program assists about 800 people per year who are LGBTQ2+ asylum seekers. And the vast majority of those folks are from Nigeria. So I have had the chance over my last 4 years in Toronto to meet quite literally hundreds of folks from Nigeria and who are members of my congregation. Some of them are just members of our refugee program who have come to Canada to seek asylum and to become refugees, convention refugees, based on their fact that they are LGBTQ2+. So I think it's a real honor and a pleasure to be here. And you know, even on my staff team, there are folks from Nigeria and Iran and Afghanistan, from the United States. We've had staff members from Chile, from Palestine, and all across Canada too. So what I really want to start by talking about is how amazing this night is, right? That there is a council of Nigerian professionals is a really big deal, right? Canada was founded as a country in 1867 as a multicultural country, right? We were French and English together in the first iteration and understanding of the country of Canada. And I am so grateful we are now finally recognizing that Canada has always, even long before Confederation, been a place of many nations, especially First Nations people, Innu and Métis people more recently. And that Canada is now home to people from across Turtle Island, as well as settler peoples from all over the world. And I'm really, really grateful that we started today's session in a good way by doing a land acknowledgement, by having an elder. And I know for me, being from Northern Ontario, Indigenous spirituality has always been deeply connected to my own personal spirituality. Just before COVID-19, I had the opportunity to go to a swearing-in ceremony, a citizenship ceremony for the newest group of Canadian citizens being made Canadians that day. And what the judge who was swearing in these citizens to give them citizenship did was she said to the children, you young people, I want you to study hard in school, do your math, do your science, but also make sure you take time to make art, to dance, to write stories, to paint, to make films, because your stories are Canadian stories and they need to be shared. And so what to me is so beautiful about tonight and about this organization is that we are coming together because your stories matter. And I think Nigerian Canadians are now a huge voting bloc. And the government is going to have to listen to you as a group of Nigerian professionals. You have a voice and a story that needs to be shared. To me, that's the most wonderful thing about this evening, is that you folks are getting organized and you're going to collectively use your voices, because when we come together, we become greater than the sum of our parts, right? So to me, Nigerian Canadians are a really important part of the Canadian context. We are in the most diverse city in the world, or where I am today in Toronto. 50% of people that live in the city of Toronto were not born in the country of Canada, and that's what makes us better. And in terms of business, that's what makes the Canadian business community stronger, right? The diversity of perspectives. And I found that in my own staff team and in my own work as a minister, that we are enriched by different cultures and different voices. All of that is a lead up to talk about what I really want to talk about today, which is the human condition. Because I moved to Toronto, I was a minister in a small town in rural Alberta, a little place called Red Deer. And I moved here to Toronto to this huge church. And all of a sudden I was meeting politicians like the Honorable Jean Augustine. And I'm going, oh my goodness, meeting the Prime Minister and meeting the Mayor of Toronto. And you know what the Mayor of Toronto said to me? He said, I just want people to like me. And what do I need to do to help the LGBTQ community, Jeff? I really just want to help people. That's the Mayor of Toronto, the most powerful guy in our city, just wants people to like him. I have gone on dates with some of the most beautiful men you can possibly imagine from every continent in the world. I've met real estate agents and actors, and they tell me, I just want somebody to love me for who I am and not how I look. And I've met people living with disabilities, folks who are on the margins, folks that don't fit inside the box, folks that are often forgotten. And they've said, I just want somebody to love me for who I am and not how I look. I have met some of the richest people in Canada. Last week, I had dinner for Bloor Street Entertains, a big CanFAR fundraising event. And I was sitting at a table with one of the 100 wealthiest Canadians. And those rich people in various ways have said to me, I just want somebody to love me for who I am and not how much money I have. And I've met people who are street involved, who are struggling to make ends meet, who rely on food banks to get their food. And I'm delighted part of the proceeds of tonight's giving goes to food programs in Brampton. And so I've met those folks who tell me, I just want somebody to love me for who I am and not how much money I have, right? That's the thing that unites us in our humanity. And I'm going to be honest with you, as an openly gay man coming to a Nigerian-centered event, and Nigeria is not known as the most LGBTQ inclusive country in the world, hence why my church has a refugee program that serves so many refugees seeking to flee Nigeria and flee the perspective of violence there. I feel a little, it's a little intimidating. Sometimes as a gay man, when I walk into a meeting on Bay Street with, financial professionals, I'm very conscious of being a member of the LGBTQ community. But yet I also know many of you, when you walk into a room, are very conscious of being Black or New Canadian or speaking with an accent. It's our common humanity. And so whenever we talk about inclusion and belonging, I'm going to take a page from one of my favorite modern day theologians named Brene Brown. She says, whenever you talk about belonging and you ask somebody about belonging, they're going to tell you about a time they didn't belong, a time they felt excluded, right? She's a researcher on vulnerability, and every time she asks about belonging, people tell her about when they didn't feel like they belonged. And so I think we need to be always aware of the places and the times when inclusion isn't happening. When we feel excluded, when we notice others might be feeling excluded. Because at the end of the day, we all share this deep-seated desire to belong, to feel included, to be loved, to be able to participate. Even the mayor of Toronto just wants to serve and help and be liked. And so what to me is so beautiful about this evening is that we are coming together, many of the folks being Nigerian Canadian, perhaps new Nigerian Canadians, perhaps you've been here for a long time, perhaps you're racialized, perhaps you are not. But at the end of the day, we all have this common humanity and this common desire to come together. And this worry that maybe we won't belong, this vulnerability. But by doing events like this, by coming together, by building community, by building bridges, that's when we truly recognize that our diversity is our strength. That when we go from diversity to belonging. I was kind of afraid coming here tonight. Most people look at me as this white cisgender, sure, I'm gay, but I'm a middle-class educated Canadian, and they think, whoa, you must be comfortable anywhere and everywhere, but yet I felt myself a little nervous coming tonight. And I'm only saying that I'm sharing my vulnerability in the hopes that it allows others of you to share your vulnerability. Because often it's through our vulnerabilities that we connect. It's not through our strengths. Nobody likes that person who's perfect and has it all together and is always confident and cocky. It's often through our brokenness, it's through our struggles, it's through our vulnerabilities that we connect. And that's where we build real, authentic community, when we really open up our hearts and we really allow ourselves to connect with each other. So to me, these next 3 days are about us really, really coming together. And Chris, I'm so grateful that you touched on the Black Lives Matter movement and how that's one of the silver linings of these last 2 years, and also the Every Child Matters movement that's come out of the legacy of residential schools. And the common word between Black Lives Matter and Every Child Matters is the word matter, right? Because your story matters. Each and every single one of you have a story, and it matters. Just like that citizens swearing in ceremony judge said, your story matters, and I hope you find a way to capture it because it's part of the Canadian story. And when we bring our stories together, collectively they multiply and we become greater than the sum of our parts. So I'm really thrilled that we'll connect over these days, that we'll build community, that we'll become stronger together, and that we'll transform that diversity into a real sense of belonging and solidarity that is this great experiment that is being Canadian, and that is the human condition, because it's the thing that truly does connect us. So know that you matter. I hope you feel free and comfortable to share your stories, ask questions, be involved in this discussion. We've got 3 great and miigwech blessings. Merci beaucoup, and it's a pleasure to be with you all today.
Thank you very much, Reverend Jeff Rock. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Reverend. You shared today, you share your vulnerability. You said sharing your vulnerability help all of us to share our vulnerability in an inclusive path. Thank you very much. And you also said Every story matters. Every story matters. It's what is the sense of belonging. Thank you, Raman, for sharing your story and your path tonight. Thank you very much. If you have questions, you can put either you can put it in the chat box, or if you don't have time to respond to today, we can take care of it later on. However, our speaker is Mr. Dan Donnelly. Mr. Dan Donnelly will share with us today candid advice to minorities about focus and persistence when diversity and inclusion is involved. And also, he'll talk about encouraging victims of inclusion episodes. Let's help me to welcome Mr. Dan Donnelly. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. To you, Mr. Donnelly.
Very kind invitation. I'm going to start off with a couple of the concepts that Jeff and Chris mentioned, Reverend Jeff and Chris mentioned as well, which is I'm honored to be here and it feels good. And I'm also going to refer to a comment that Elder Paquette made. And Elder Paquette, it feels very comforting to know that my ancestors are in the room here with me. That gives me a lot of strength. So thank you for that thought. So you might wonder why I'm here. So I'll cover 3 areas of why I'm here. First of all, I'm involved in diversity and inclusion at our bank. I am on the Diversity and Inclusion Council for our control functions, and I am the executive sponsor for our Black Employees Subcommittee. Second, like Reverend Jeff, I'm a man, and back to his discussions about belonging always include an element of not belonging, and I had a feeling of not belonging in the early days of my career. I was working on Bay Street, and at that time, it wasn't a comfortable or maybe even not a safe spot to say if you were a gay person. And so I had those feelings at one point. Fortunately, the world has changed dramatically since then. And then third is my parents. I think of my parents, and I think the easiest way of conveying to you why is a statement that was in my mother's obituary, which is, she taught us about tolerance, acceptance, respect, and inclusion. And that's a very powerful thought. And I'll never forget those teachings for the rest of my life that I got from my parents. So I'm going to go in with 5 sort of practical advice, but I had to put a caveat in there first. My caveat is I'm not an expert on this, but I deeply believe in diversity, inclusion, and equality. I am candid, so I can meet that part of the topic, and I'm an ally. So the 5 topics I'm going to cover is, number 1 is never be afraid to speak up. And this has, to me, 2 elements to it. One is never hesitate to be an equal voice. And when I think of this thought, I think back of it was an event back at my employer back several years ago, an International Women's Day event. And a senior executive was talking about when she was first promoted to that senior executive table. And she talked about the apprehension that was associated with that. And then she said she overcame that apprehension by thinking 2 things. Number 1, I have something to say. And number 2, I deserve to be here. And I find those to be very powerful thoughts. And they're things that give me inspiration when I'm feeling a little apprehensive or need a little strength in me. So I hope you find them too. The second element of never hesitate to speak up is when something wrong has happened, when you've experienced discrimination or you feel you're not in an inclusive environment. And that can be both things you hear and things you see, but it can also be things you feel, things you sense, what you think is happening behind the scenes. So the question then is, do you do anything? I think back, another experience in my job was, I was at an offsite one day, and the day before that, there was a very prominent decision which came out of an Alberta court, and I believe it had to do with a teacher who had been fired. And Reverend Jeff probably knows the story much better than I do because he was from, I heard him mention he was from Alberta. The teacher who was fired, and then the court subsequently ordered him to be hired. At the beginning of the offsite, one of the participants in the offsite said, given that decision yesterday out of Alberta, I feel that I should be wearing a pink shirt today. The comment landed like that. It was definitely made in a derogatory sense, but nobody said it. And then I think of another time in my career, it was one of my colleagues. One of my colleagues was in a situation with a very senior person in the bank at a meeting, and a somewhat derogatory comment was made. I'm sure there was no ill intent, but but my colleague immediately spoke up and said, and explained that that comment hurt and explained why. And the person immediately got it. And I think that there was immediate change. And it just goes to show the power of speaking up. But I realize speaking up isn't easy, and speaking up can be risky. So I think that you have to pause sometimes, and you have to think, is this the time to speak up? And then some of the considerations are, how is the person going to react if I speak up? Well, what are the consequences if I speak up? Will I feel safe if I speak up? And then if you decide to speak up, then I think sort of that, then it turns into the how. And then one of the first things to do is, do you speak up directly or do you speak up through an ally? And then think about it from the point of view of, don't make it personal against the person. It's not a personal attack. So it is about the impact. So make it about the impact, and also have a purpose. Like you're having that discussion for a reason, and remember what that reason is. So moving on to my next bit of advice, and the next four, you're probably worried now that I'm going to talk too long, but the next part I'm going to show you much quicker. The next one is find allies, and allies are not mentors. And I think the concepts are sometimes confused. An ally is a mentor, is someone who gives advice. An ally is someone who's going to be much more active. They're going to step in, do things for you. Who are the potential allies? Allies are your colleagues at work, your trusted colleagues and friends. Allies can be leadership at your employer. They can be your manager. They can be an informal mentor. They can be something in a more formal sense, like somebody from the HR group. The concept of an ally can be very powerful, so definitely rely on that. Number three is find a sponsor. Like an ally, a sponsor is not a mentor. And there's one word that signifies to me the difference, and that is influence. A sponsor can get things done. A sponsor can open doors. A sponsor can make things happen for you. They have the power to do that. But I think one important thing to remember with a sponsor is it's not about finding the sponsor and waiting for them to do things for you. It has to be it has to be a bond between you. There has to be a huge amount of trust there. And to do that, you have to have open communication. You have to share your thoughts, piece of advice number 4 is research your organization. A job interview is not a one-way street. The employer is interviewing the candidate, but the candidate is also interviewing the employer. And I think in that case, ask questions. Ask what might be regarded as tough questions. Ask about diversity and inclusion. Ask what the organization is doing. Ask what's changed because of what they're doing. And ask, how are people feeling? Use the term unconscious bias and see if you get a blank stare, or if you get somebody who really knows what that means and really cares about it and is really fighting against it. Because you want to make sure that you're not just hearing buzzwords from the organization, that they're not just saying what they think they should be saying, but you want to make sure that it's real, that the organization really believes that. Now, there's a risk in doing that, and that the risk is that people are different, and some people might be made uncomfortable by that, some considerably uncomfortable. But I think that's a risk that you have to take, because if the person's becoming uncomfortable in a setting like that, do you want to work with that person? Piece of advice number 5 is never give up. Never accept that being treated differently is okay. Never lower your aspirations. Now, I realize it's easy for me to say that, but I believe the way to do that is by being positive. Like thinking, I'm a glass half full type of person. I go through life like that. Some might criticize me for going through life with rose-colored glasses on, but I would much prefer to do that. And I think it's that type of strength that can cause you or give you the strength to not give up. So once in a while, your instinct is going to tell you, I should give up. There's nothing here. And if you're thinking give up and there's no change, you're probably right. I appreciate this opportunity greatly. It's been a real honor to be here. I hope these thoughts have been somewhat useful for you. I know there's a lot out there, a lot of writing about an organization and how an organization can become more diverse, more inclusive, promote equality. But I realize there's not a lot of information out there on like what I just gave you. So I hope that you found them useful. Great. Thank you very much.
So very much, Mr. Dan Donnelly. It's really, really inspiring listening to you. I mean, where do I spoken, you talked about the fact that you felt not belonging. You know, a lot of people feel that the fact that somebody is a Caucasian, they're automatically okay. No, that's not the case. And that's why it's important to continue to talk about inclusion, diversity. Thank you so much for sharing, you know, the quotes that your mom told you: tolerance, respect, acceptance, and inclusion. That's really, really powerful. And I'm taking it away today. Thank you so much. And I just want to quickly talk about a quote from Jesse Jackson, because I'm really, really excited about the people here today, our leaders. You know, he said, time is neutral and does not change things. With courage and initiative, leaders change things. And we have leaders on this panel today that are willing to change things, that have been changing things. And we're so excited because we know that it can always get better. And so on that note, our next speaker is Ms. Rebecca Pang, and she'll be talking about identifying barriers to inclusion and how to break down the barriers. Over to you. Thank you.
Much. I'm going to repeat what other speakers have mentioned. So honored to be alongside with such an incredible panel speaker here, and so grateful and glad to be here with all of you tonight. So 14 years ago, I came to this country knowing only one person. That is my husband. I sent out 400 resumes, didn't hear back much, and finally got one interview for capital market positions. That day started off like that. The first interview is with one white man managing director. Second interview, another white man managing director. Third interview, two white men, and then another three men, and then final interview, a white man managing director. At that point, my curiosity got the best of me. I asked the question, how's the diversity of this group, like what Don suggests? The managing director say, well, we have many people like you who have MBA, we have CFA, we have CPA, people have law degree. We're very diverse. I took his answer as is because I really wanted that job. A couple of weeks later, I joined the group, and I know why. I was the second woman on that team. I was the first ever, perhaps never after immigrant, ESL, English as a language, fresh off the boat, FOB, on that team. And for the next couple of years, although I worked shoulder to shoulder with my colleagues, quite often 80 hours a week, I never felt belong. I always feel alone and lonely because it's simply too difficult to integrate into a close-knit room when you are different and the only one being different. And that leads to my first point of the biggest barrier to inclusion. Representation matters, and it still matters. A couple of weeks ago, I saw the trailblazer, brilliant Wes Hall on a panel speaking events. Many of you know Wes Hall is a hugely successful Black entrepreneur. He's also the latest Dragons on the Dragon's Den and the founder of the Black North Initiative. And he said, when you have one Black person on the board, you run the risk of marginalizing that talent because he or she become a token and a poster child. And when you have two Black person on the board, you run the risk of pitting one against each other. When you have three Black person or minority on the board, then that's the moment when you start to realize the benefit of diversity. And that's the moment when those diverse talents feel being included. So back to my capital market story. The second surprise I found is my colleagues do not speak English. They speak Hockey-ish. So hockey to me at that time is a steak and a puck and lots of fighting. Now, many years later, as a proud Canadian mom, hockey to me right now is waking up at 6 a.m., dragging my son to the rink, score a goal. Now I have the shared experience and collective memories on hockey with other Canadians. But back then, for me to integrate the very white male-dominated hockey-focused group, I bought a bunch of hockey magazine. I tried to memorize all the famous team player or famous team of hockey. I tried to name drop my way into the conversation. It didn't work that well. And in fact, there are many corporate events or team gathering I always look forward to go to. But I'm so anxious that people will pass where I stand or where I sit to go to their close-knit group to talk about hockey or other Canadian things, because it happened most of the time. Now, my colleagues are not bad people. It's just human nature. We all like to hang out with people who look like us and talk about things that we grew up with and we're familiar with. And it took quite a bit of effort and vulnerability to talk about something that you don't know and to get to know someone who's so different. I know it because it takes me effort to learn about hockey. But is it really that hard? Not really. It takes curiosity and allyship and really be empathetic to the person in front of you and treating the person with respect so they don't feel they need to hide anything or hide their differences. No wonder the Harvard Business Review actually lists curiosity as the most important attributes for inclusive leadership. And the lack of it, to me, is the second biggest barrier to inclusion. The third barrier to inclusion is lack of sensitivity. Over my career, I have heard a number of times the terms of yellow fever, I don't refer to the illness, or let's ask Rebecca to borrow some Chinese wall. I always laugh along with my colleagues because I want to be part of the group. And I don't want people to think I'm too sensitive. But these are the exact moments that I don't feel included at all. Why? Because these are the moments that I feel I'm singled out, I'm different, and my difference is something that is laughable or become a joke. 2 years ago, I took up a role that is in a part of the bank that I knew very little about, and I didn't know anyone. I remember, and it's under Chris Depenzier, and I remember I went to this thousands people gala. That was the time before COVID when in-person gala is still possible. And I found everyone else seems to know each other in their prior life except me. Chris Depenzier spotted me from afar and say hello and just told me, hey, I know it's a big transition. We're here to support, and give me a really good hug. So right there, it melts away my anxiety. We don't need to wait until there's representation or until we become a leader to do something. Every one of us has the capacity to contribute to an inclusive environment. Be more curious, be more empathetic, a little bit more sensitive, and spot out the outsider, the person that look a little bit awkward simply because he or she feel like a fish out of the water. Reach out and connect, and your small action can really make a big impact so that they feel you see them, you hear them, you embrace them, and so they belong. Thank you so, so much. And again, so excited to be great and grateful to be as part of this panel on your day one, and wish you lots of success for the 3 days conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Rebecca Pang. It was so interesting, so amazing, so interesting to share what you share tonight. And what I learned from this is you talk about curiosity. And curiosity is the most important aspect of inclusion. And a lack of curiosity may lead to a barrier for inclusion. So as you said, every one of us has the capacity to embrace inclusion. So let's all of us embrace inclusion, no matter at what level we are, whether it's a corporate level or in a day-to-day level. Thank you very much, Ms. Rebecca Pang. Our next guest, actually the last one tonight, and not the least, is Mr. Arthur Amadi. And Arthur Amadi will talk about what the minorities want senior management in corporate Canada to know about our feelings on inclusion and why we fuss about. And he will talk about telling it as it is. Thank you very much, Mr. Amadi, coming here tonight to share all those things. Back over to you, Mr. Amadi.
Thank you so much, sir. And I really appreciate being here. I want to thank God for just being kept till December. Happy new month to everyone throughout this whole pandemic. We're all still alive. I'm grateful for that because a lot of people lost their families during, this time, some friends, some people that are close to them in the past year and a bit. And just a huge honor to Lady Abha and the Council for Nigerian Professionals. I think having this such a powerful lineup of speakers has been incredible. And I don't know if Lady Abha, I think she's signing up for my death sentence because I heard, two parts of conversation that are very dangerous. Being the first, like Honorable Jean Augustine, and and the closer, the last person to speak. I think I don't know if it's possible. How does someone do better than Miss Rebecca Pang? I think Lady Alva is setting me up for failure, but on a more serious note, I really appreciate all the work that she's done to put the event together, and all the CNP team. And especially, I just want to honor, Honorable Jean Augustine, actually, the first woman of African descent elected into Canada's parliament. I met her in 2019 at Friends of Africa Summit, and I volunteered, at the end to drop her home. I volunteered. I always volunteer. I serve, the community. So I think going into the topic today about the power of inclusion, I was shocked because I didn't know about Honorable Jean until that day. And I went to high school in Canada, and you see such a woman that's impacted the country, not included in our curriculum. So if anyone's here listening today, that's in the government, I know there's some people here from the banking sector, some people from the finance, but if there's anyone in the government, I think there's something we should do about that. Can we include Jean Augustine in the Canadian curriculum? Let the future generations learn about what this great, amazing woman has done for us. So let me get right into it. I was born in Nigeria, but my mom decided to move to Canada when I was 7. And after shortly, I became a Canadian citizen, which I'm so proud of and I'm grateful for. And every time I look at my passport, I'm reminded of a country that welcomed me and made me feel loved. And it was so amazing getting to grow up with so many different people from diverse backgrounds. And Canada embraced me. Now, I don't know if I've, embraced the cold. I'm still trying to see if I can get used to it, but maybe after a while I'll embrace it. And this whole pandemic that happened earlier this year, I think there was a pandemic that allowed for the real pandemic to be shown. Earlier this year we had COVID, and it was horrible. But I think the more devastating pandemic was brought to light, which was systemic racism, with what happened with George Floyd. And I remember speaking in Milton, where I live, and with a crowd of people, with our MP, Adam Van Koeverden, and just spoke from the heart about what I felt. And this is important to what Ms. Rebecca Pang said earlier and what Chris did. And Adam, after I finished speaking, gave me his card and said, "Hey, I would love to work with you." I don't look like Adam, but he decided to reach out. We're talking about inclusion, the power of inclusion. So I think this is very important, taking that first step, and I'll round up later on with something I think a lot of the allies on this call can do actively, which very powerful that Chris did with Rebecca. But I want to start with the definition of power. Most people, when they hear power, it gets to their head. They think of people like, maybe the prime minister, or they think about a president, or they think about an elected official. But the definition on Google, it says the power is the ability to do something or act in a particular way. And that's a great definition. I remember growing to school, a teacher that power is simply the ability to do work. And over the time in my life, I've realized to create and label things myself. And my definition of power is the ability to create change. And why do I say this? I think I'm coming back to it so we can hold on to it. But there are three types of power, and I'm happy Reverend Jeff spoke about, our ancestors, and the elder also spoke about it. And the spiritual power is very important. We have political power and economic power. We have Honorable Gene Augustine talking about political power. We have a lot of people in the banking sector, economic power. And I really want to hold on that economic power because it does something for the future. It does something with this topic we're talking about, inclusion. So what is the definition of inclusion? It's the action or state of including or being included, but not just anywhere. It's within a group or a structure. So you're in an organization, you're in a company, even in a family. Some people aren't included in their family. You're in a church, right? You're in a country, you're in a nation like Nigeria. Sometimes you might not be included. You might have to leave. This definition is very powerful. And earlier this year, I was on a call. I think Mr. Becca Penn mentioned West Hall. So I was on a call earlier this year on a Black North Talk session with two powerful men of African descent, Robert F. Smith and West Hall. And they were speaking about the importance of inclusion and how organizations, and I'm talking back to this economic power, how organizations are more efficient when they include different diverse people. Statistics prove that when you have different people from diverse backgrounds, they bring different ideologies, different thought patterns, different innovative ideas to the organization, to the company. This generates results that most people who haven't adopted that lens of inclusion don't get. Organizations that are more inclusive are more effective. And yes, I know my topic today is talking about, quote unquote, the minorities. I know I'm visible. See me, but like I said, I like to label. I don't know about some other people, but I don't consider myself a minority. I'm a majority, but I understand the concept, right? Now for me in my situation as a young person, and speaking for young people, I can't speak for everyone, but for some of the people I know that I've talked and interacted with the community, we talk about breaking down barriers. Just here, what do we want senior management to know? What is this all about? Now, I like definitions, as you've noticed, right? And what is a barrier? A barrier is a fence or an obstacle that prevents movement. Now, some people will look at that and look at it as the physical barrier. But I think the foundation, the fundamental of barriers are mental. When you see someone and before they even speak, you've put up a barrier in your mind to say, hey, I don't know if this person can deliver like the other person that I know. I don't know if they can perform. I don't know if they're capable. I don't know if they have the expertise. They might have the MBA. They might have the CPA, but I don't know if they're as good as the other person that I know. So this mental barrier that is put up in your mind, physical barriers put up in the workplace, I think is very, very dangerous and very, very important for us to bring down in senior management. Because the worst thing a young person can do is before they speak, they're judged. Before they are able to communicate their effectiveness, before they're able to show the qualities they possess, is to be looked down on, right? Or not even given the opportunity. And these barriers don't appear. They're put up. Puts these barriers up. We talk about Canada before we got here. Some people here, Canada just didn't come out of thin air. There were people here, the indigenous people were here before all of us came to this country. So these barriers are put up by people on the other side. And this is where I talk about allyship and the importance of allyship. So what do we want senior management to know? Obviously, number one being, hey, the barriers you might have in your mind about us, young people, about us, quote unquote, minorities, I think be okay to give us a chance. It might be okay to give us that opportunity for us to even take a shot, right? Michael Jordan talks about you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But I'll say this, you can't miss a shot if you're not even given the opportunity to take the shot in the first place, right? So if senior management can at least look at young people, look at the visible majorities and give us an opportunity, I think it would be amazing. And then we have a lot of leaders here. We have a lot of leaders, from government, banking, influential allies. And I think round up, I like to paraphrase from one of my mentors. You know, he's gone now, but Miles Monroe, he believed that he was born to transform people, right? Some people said followers, but I don't believe anybody is a follower. I believe we're all leaders. So he's here to, you know, transform leaders, people like myself, people like the other panelists on the calls, into leaders. Normal people into leaders. Maybe you see a visible majority and you think of them as a follower. You might think of them as just coming up. Maybe can you transform them into a leader? And us leaders here on the calls, the senior management, can we be transformed, right, by some of the people we listen to, maybe by the people we report to, or by our own personal development? Can we be transformed into agents of change? I think it's not only our duty, but I think it's an obligation, and I think all of us here on the call that have the influence to take that action, to become agents of change in the workspace, in governments and organization. I think it's up to us to take that influence that we have and actually create change. Back to what I said about power. We have this power here. So can we take the power, the influence we have, and create change in the environment and in the workplace? So thank you so much for listening today, and I really appreciate giving the opportunity to speak to such an amazing group of people that are here today. And also, it's been an honor to speak and being, you know, recognized here with the Council of Nigerian Professionals. And I look forward to the next couple of days where we're going to see even more great speakers. And thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, also Amadi. You can see the passion oozing out from him. That's what you get from getting a youth on the panel. We wanted to make sure that our leaders can actually hear from some of our youths in the community. Thank you so much. I don't want to steal the thunder of the vote of thanks, the person that will say the vote of thanks, so I'm just going to keep it there. Thank you for your contribution. Really, really appreciate it. Otto is actually in Nigeria as we speak. He joined. What's the time now out there, Otto? +6 hours. Is cheating sleep as it is. Thank you. Really appreciate it. So thank you, everybody that joined Council of Nigerian Professionals first day breaking down barriers. Do you have questions? I guess so. If you look at the chat, it's really busting by the seams. So if you have questions, please raise your hand. We can unmute you and you'll be able to ask your questions of any of our panelists. We do have about 30 minutes to do that. We're really, really doing great for time.
Okay. What a great evening. What a great evening tonight. Quel grand événement aujourd'hui. C'est vraiment très, très, très émouvant. Vraiment, nous avons appris beaucoup de choses avec des panélistes de haute qualité, de haute facture. Vraiment, on se sent avec beaucoup plus d'opportunités sur le plan de l'inclusion. Comment faire de telle sorte que l'inclusion soit quelque chose qui fera partie de la vie de toujours. Et si vous avez des questions, vous pourrez unmuter et puis on va vous laisser poser votre question en direct à l'un de nos panélistes. Donc, à vous, si jamais vous avez des... N'hésitez pas. On est là, on a encore une trentaine de minutes dans ce sens-là. Merci beaucoup.
So as we wait for people to ask their questions, please, if you do have questions, put it in the Q&A or raise your hands. We'll be able to unmute you to ask the questions. But we did get some questions in. And please, any of our panelists, anyone can please take this away. So one of the questions we have, and this might have been treated somewhat, is why should any organization care about diversity and inclusion?
I'll start off. Like I think it's a very simple concept, because I think an organization that truly believes in diversity and inclusion is going to be a better organization. The people are going to work. The people are going to be more comfortable in their organization. They're going to be more committed to their organization. They're going to give more. They're going to enjoy it more. They're going to connect with their colleagues more. Like I think it's a better organization, and thinking financially, it's a more successful organization. But then I think beyond the success, financial, etc., I think about it from a very simple point of view, and that is, it's the right thing to do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Donnelly. Do we have anybody else that'd like to add to that from the panelists?
Maybe I can take
Okay.
a little stab.
So I'll go to the next question.
Oh.
What is holding us back from maximizing diverse groups of people? Otto, are you speaking? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
I was.
So Reverend,
Go ahead, Arthur. You say something if you'd like before I jump into it.
Oh, yes. I was gonna add a point to the last question. It was just really going to be a diverse and inclusive organization. What kind of organization are you going to be? Something to think about.
thank you
Great
so
point,
much.
great
Reverend
point.
Jeff Rock, I think you raised your hand.
So I did. For that second question, what's holding us back? And I think the number one thing is fear. Right? I think so many of us are afraid of saying the wrong thing, and so we don't say anything. So many of us are afraid in the corporate world of supporting a colleague and being an ally, because maybe that'll make me more vulnerable. And I think, you know, I tell this story all the time about being on an airplane, and I had a long flight ahead of me, and I was kind of bored, and I kind of wanted to talk to the person next to me. And I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited. And eventually I started talking to them. Well, it turns out they had been spending the flight wanting to talk to me too. And I was afraid to bother them, and they were afraid to bother me, but we both just wanted to talk on the plane. And to me, it's just such an apt metaphor for diversity and inclusion, and for what it means to be people and in relationship. I think we are human beings that are meant to be in relationship with each other. We are meant to be diverse. It's what makes us better. It's what makes us stronger. But we all sit there afraid to make the first move, right? You know, people see me as a white middle-class guy, and they must think you have so much power, but I'm sitting there thinking, oh, but I'm a gay guy. You have so much power. And I think we're all a little afraid of each other. And again, I'm going to mention her again. My favorite modern day theologian is a woman named Brene Brown, who does research on vulnerability. And she says that the number one quality we admire in others is vulnerability. The last thing we're willing to do is be vulnerable, right? We admire vulnerability, but we're scared to be vulnerable ourselves. So I think it's fear. And I think we have to get over the hump of fear, and we will reap the rewards and the benefits that come in. It's scary. Doing the work of diversity and inclusion is not easy. You know, I'm a member of the LGBTQ+ community, and gay men and lesbian women have absolutely nothing in common, except for our common experience of exclusion, right? Doing the work of anti-racism, addressing Black Lives Matter is scary. It's uncomfortable. When somebody makes an inappropriate comment, Dan, you mentioned you were in a meeting and somebody made an inappropriate comment, and Rebecca, you talked about being with colleagues and you laugh at the joke anyway, even though it's a bit of a microaggression. These things are uncomfortable. This is not easy work. It's not easy to stand up and speak up and be an ally, or even to claim, you know, your own story. This is scary stuff, but it's important stuff. And we can't let that fear hold us back, because what's on the other side when we tear down those barriers that you talked about, Arthur, the rewards are incalculable.
Thank you so very much, Reverend Jeff Rock. That was powerful. Fear actually holds us back. You are very correct. One of the things I tell people is you go into an event in-person event, you meet a lot of people, but you're waiting for someone to reach out to you. Why don't you be that person to reach out first? So when we've done our part, then we have then we have a right to ask of the same thing from others, but we need to do our part. And that's why I would say inclusion is also about looking within, before we look without. What are we doing to make sure that we're included, we're open to other people? So thank you so much for that. Fear holds every one of us back. Am I going to be accepted? Am I not going to be accepted? We do have a question, and Dr. Lamini is going to take it.
Thank you, Lady Atiba. So we do have a question. And how can we break the barriers at work when our direction and senior management are not interested in diversity and inclusion? So I don't know who would like to take that question.
Sir, maybe before taking that, I noticed that Honorable Jean Augustine had her hand up. I don't know if she wanted to make a comment.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express and to agree with so many of the other speakers who've gone before in terms of answering that question. But then when I look at what I think the fear of sharing power, the stereotypes, and a lot of people still operate in stereotypes. This is the way we've always done it. Not wanting to change, not wanting to accept change, not wanting to accept differences. The issue of the comfort level of individuals, and when we look at the white power movement, the white nationalists, the cry that these people are going to won't take us thing, give us back our country, give us back our space, give us back all of these things. There is that fear of what sharing power, what giving into others can do to our organization, replacing, that they will replace us. And there are all kinds of places where we see this. People who are collecting information about the other. You can't have too many of those people. What will happen to the way we've always done it? Why do we have to change things that we've always had in our society to please them or to suit them? Why do we have to do name changes? Why do we have to look at historical things and put it in today's perspective? I think all of those are the reasons why people hold on and seem to be afraid to move into that area of inclusion. And I think we also have to realize that that many people are moving forward, but there are some people who are pulling back. We've gone through the Trump years, bring us back to wherever, make us great again, as though that great again was really something for all peoples. And we see what's happening now with, all of the big social questions. We realize that we have to focus, and all of us, people of goodwill, wanting to live in a society that is fair and just and diverse, and where inclusion is seen. I mean, Canada was one of the first countries in the world to step out and say, we are a multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious society. And we pride ourselves on that. And yet we have people in our midst who somehow don't see that as a benefit. And so all of this discussion, what's the fuss about? Is the fact that we have to fuss until every person in the society somehow get the message.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Jean Augustino. Thank you very much. We have to fuss until
everybody gets the message.
What a powerful message. Thank you, Honorable Dr. Jean Augustino. We have another question here. how can it be steered away from regular employment to being enabled as entrepreneurship and family-owned businesses?
I didn't get the question. Can you read that question again?
Okay, yes.
How can immigrants be steered away from regular employment to being enabled as entrepreneurship and family-owned businesses?
I'll jump in. It's
Yeah.
sorry, Honorable Jean. Go ahead. Okay, it's tough coming from me because I've been employed my whole life. There are times I've thought to myself, I wish I had gone a more entrepreneurial route. Fortunately, I love being employed, but that thought has crossed my mind. But I think the starting point is it's probably very difficult, unfortunately, because it requires funding, and it requires taking a big chance as a starting point, being willing to take a big chance. But I think more importantly, it requires funding. And so I think, I don't know an organization to refer you to, but I think there are organizations in Toronto that could help immigrants with that, with advice on how to do that, to set them up with a mentor who's an entrepreneur, and to ideally connect them with sources of funding to the extent that funding is needed. So I realize that's not a lot of help, but I think those type of organizations do exist.
Yeah, I do want to add to that, if it's okay. So I am aware of an organization called Futurepreneur. So they help young professionals to turn ideas into a thriving business. And I believe they have a session for immigrant young entrepreneur. That's point number one. Point number two is I think these days a lot of companies are really putting innovation at the center in front. For example, obviously we have our internal ventures, right? So it's not a bad idea to look for those opportunities, being an entrepreneur within an organization or within a company, just to learn about the Canadian business environment until at a point that you're more settled into this country than branch out to be your own entrepreneur for your own businesses.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question, how can I can repeat the question one more time. How can I take leadership of diversity and inclusion at work? Who's going to take on the question? One of our valued panelists.
I can speak as an outsider and someone, Dan, who is not in the work world right now. What I see in terms of, and you can call me, anybody can call me out on this because I could be wrong. But what I see right now within corporate and within institutions and other places where they've set up diversity and inclusion committees, that they have Black folks heading those committees. They're not given the budgets, they're not given the whatever else. And so they are bringing, because the organization say, yes, we'll do Black History Month, or yes, we'll do a diversity and inclusion, then that committee and the leadership of that committee is not really the real leadership of the corporate, of the body corporate. It seems as though the onus is on these people of color to take the whatever and run with it. And I could be completely wrong, but I can think of so many organizations corporate bodies, where if you ask them about, do they have oh yes, we have a diversity and inclusion committee or whatever it's called within the organization. And it's always a person of color that is, or a minority or a whatever is heading this. And it reminds me years and years ago when we started talking about multiculturalism, and I was doing all kinds of multicultural things as a principal in the school system. And then they called me for a promotion. And the promotion was for me to be a superintendent for multiculturalism, multicultural programs. And I turned it down, and I remember the face of the director of education at the time could not believe. He said, nobody has ever come into my office and turned down a position. And I said, you know why I turned it down? Because if we are at the beginning, I'm talking about 1980, 81, we were at the beginning of talking about multiculturalism, talking about diversity, talking about bringing the culture and the language and the whatever else into the system. I am out there and I'm doing the best I can. And I'm showing to young Black people, stay in school, get your degree, get a promotion, get a whatever. And when I get a promotion, the only place I can get a promotion is in the field of multiculturalism. When I had my master's in, and on in different things. I could do far more, I just didn't, was not that I thought there was anything wrong with that, because I was doing millions of workshops all across the province with educators. But I felt if I were to get a promotion, that I wanted to say to my community and those people, those young people that I'm saying, get the degree, get the whatnot, do that, and then I end up, accepting this. And they didn't look at me for about a year. Everybody, that was a talk of the school board and my thing at the time, that I went in there and I insulted them by refusing to take that superintendent of multiculturalism position. But I was standing on principle. Later on, of course, I was promoted, but I remember that experience. Every time I talk to someone from your banks, from your other corporate bodies, from your whatnot, and I say, what is the committee? The committee is always a lot of Black folks on there. And I'm saying it has to be the allies, the organization's commitment to inclusion, rather than putting it on the people who feel that, that the system is not serving them right. But I am open for debate on that. You can prove me wrong.
Thank you so much, Madam Jean Augustine. I see Reverend Jeff Rock hands raised. Did you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I would just echo what the Honorable Jean Augustine is saying. What really gets me jazzed up, what really makes me so happy, is when I see the LGBTQ community fighting racism. And when I see racialized community addressing disability and ableism in the world. And when the disabled community is advocating for Indigenous inclusion. And when the Indigenous community is talking about new Canadians. And that's why, like tonight, like I was a little nervous, what's gonna be, why, what am I doing here? And then we start with an elder and a land acknowledgement, and we talk about the reality of colonialism in Canada. Canada's only, started in 1967, but people have been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And we are a multicultural country at our origin, French and English, but also Indigenous nations. There is no one Indigenous way of being. There's multiple languages and cultures and spiritualities, and new Canadians are coming together. And like to hear the amount of LGBTQ inclusion, and we keep bringing up Indigenous issues and the Every Child Matters movements, and the legacy of residential schools, and fighting anti-Black racism, and needing to do more in ability and disability, and taking down the barriers to entrepreneurship, right? Which is one of the biggest ones in Canada. We always think Canada is like this great country of diversity and inclusion, and it is. But any of you who are new Canadians know there are a lot of barriers. Anyone who's racialized know finding an apartment in Toronto is almost impossible. There's still so much work to do. So my new favorite saying, and I've been using it all the time, my new favorite phrase is inter-movement solidarity. If we take these different movements, the ability and disability movement, the women's movement, the LGBTQ+ movement, the anti-racism, if we bring all those movements together, holy guacamole, we're going to make a difference. And I feel like tonight is getting me all jazzed up. I'm energized. So I'm thrilled to be part of this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that contribution. I'm all jazzed up just listening to you. We have a few more questions, and over to you.
Thank you, Lady Atiba. The next question is, how would you handle, or what is the best approach in a situation where a colleague was being culturally insensitive, sexist, racist, or homophobic? Who's taking that question? I see Mr. Donnelly raising his hand. Over to you, Mr.
To me, it's you have to deal with it in the situation. Like I gave the example of the meeting I was in when people didn't deal with it. Another situation where people did deal with it, and when people deal with it, real change. I was actually in a seminar today, and they made the comment that they call it the 2-second rule. You've got to do something within 2 seconds, and if you can't think within those 2 seconds of what to say, just say ouch. That I just let people know that there was something wrong that happened there, and I think that's important. Like you've got to react to it. You got to do it right away, and ideally it's the ally reacting. Like it's just the ally there who is jumping in to help.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. It's a great question. I mean, early in my career, as I mentioned earlier, I laugh along, I stay quiet because I wasn't confident, worry about the consequence. But if I would go back, of course, we cannot go back. But I will encourage people that, the time has changed since I started my first job 20 years ago. It's important to voice it out and speak up. And then I think using ouch, I think is a good way because it does take me some time to even think about what to say. And I find, okay, when I'm thinking the time already passed, I missed the opportunity. But what I will share is things that happened that is discriminatory 20 years ago when I didn't speak up, it still bothers me today. It has consequence. No one knows I didn't tell anyone, but it affects how I perceive certain people when I interact with those type of people again. So it does have an impact when you don't speak up. And sometimes those comments could be not ill intention. They may not be aware, and it help other people that, they won't receive the same kind of treatment again for those who say something offensive. So now I will definitely speak up for myself and for other people.
There is also the old saying, to do nothing is to do something. To say nothing is to say something. The lack of action or the inaction. And I'll tell you something I learned in 1963 when I got my first job. And I was talking to this woman, and she's helping me to orientate myself, Rebecca. And she said, when you get there in the morning, say, what a game. And she says, get out of the conversation. What a game. And so I didn't have to read about hockey or watch it or anything. All I had to say was, boy, last night, what a game. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you so much. What a game. Thank you. I mean, we can go on and on, but thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate, the wonderful advice and nuggets that we've heard today. and for all the questions. We still have a lot of questions, but we don't, because in the interest of time, we won't be able to take any other question, but we'd like you to give just one word. If there's anything you want to leave the attendees with today, what would that word be? And Honorable Jane Augustine, if you don't mind starting, for us. Thank you.
One word? My goodness. Okay, my one word would be, oh Lord, everything I want to put in, a verb together with a with a noun.
Maybe a sentence.
Take risks. Take risk. Opportunity knocks.
Thank you so much. Ms. Rebecca Pang.
I'm so glad that you say one sentence. I recently read a quote from a poem. I forget the poem's name, but what it say is, your pain is the breaking of the shell that enclose understanding, which I find resonate very well. So you may sometimes feel, you're facing a lot of the challenges or barriers, but just remember that this is the breaking of the shell and close understanding that will help you to be a better leader, better inclusive leader in the future.
Thank you. Reverend Jeff Rock.
I would say we're better together. We are better together. Always, always, always.
Mr. Donnelly, your sentence?
Believe in yourself.
Thank you. Believe in yourself. Otto Amadi, do you want to go next?
Thank you so much. You have the power to create change.
Yes.
The young minds, power to create change. Thank you. Ms. Christopher there. Okay. Okay. So thank you, everybody, again. Thank you so much. We really, really had a fantastic time. Now, this continues tomorrow. If you don't have the link, go to cmpngo.ca and get the link for tomorrow. Tomorrow's sub-theme is envisioning a brighter future. You don't want to miss it. And so on that note, we will call to the stage Ms. Mosun Afolabi. Ms. Mosun Afolabi is a dynamic young woman. She loves to connect with people and support them, irrespective of where she meets them. She's a mother, she's a wife, and she's a banker. She wears so many hats, but she's an avid volunteer. Please give a warm welcome to Ms. Mosumola Afolabi for the vote of thanks.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What a great thought-provoking event. The maiden edition of Power of Inclusion. What is the field about? Oh my God. I deem it a great honor and privilege to use this vote of thanks on the maiden edition of what this feels about, diversity and inclusion. Foremost, I want to thank our special guest, the organizer. If we didn't have you, we wouldn't be able to do this great event. All the volunteers that put in the fantastic event together, you're all awesome. Thank you very much. And our special speaker, Dr. Jane Augustine, I am privileged and I thank you. I'm gonna run with this. We all have a role to play and the time to start is now. What's the field about? I am sure we're able to break it down today, okay? And Ms. Chris DePensier, thank you so much. I am honored. You said we should put our allyship in action, use active allyship. You can be diverse, but it doesn't mean you are inclusive. You can be inclusive, but it does not mean you are diverse. Thought-provoking. Thank you so much. Ms. Rebecca Peng, everyone has the capacity to, sorry, I'm so carried away. Everybody has the capacity to embrace inclusion. Thank you for that story. Thank you so much. Reverend Jack Rock, thank you for what you've been doing in the community, especially Nigeria community. Thank you so much. Not only diversity, but also inclusion. When asked when we belong, we usually tend to talk more about where we don't belong, our own matters. Thank you so much. And also to Mr. Dan, thank you for touching on tolerance, respect, acceptance, and inclusion. We will run with that. Thank you so much. And yes, the youth are ready to take over positively. Thank you, Otto Amadi, for your input for tonight's event. Thank you so much. Most especially, I want to thank our media and publicity. Without them, this wouldn't, at this age and time, this wouldn't have been possible. Thank you so much. And to our special guests, everyone that signed in today to join this conversation. Oh my goodness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The members of organization all over Africa, thank you for being here. Special thanks goes to RBC for supporting this event. We are very happy and proud of you. Thank you. Finally, I want to remind everyone that this event continues tomorrow with powerful panelists. I'm sure you were able to enjoy today. You were empowered, motivated, and connected. I would like you to please invite your friends and families to join us for tomorrow's event. Thank you very much, and good night, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
What a game. What a game. What a
CMP Inc. welcomes you to day 2 of Power of Inclusion. What is the fuss about? When? Friday, December 3rd, 2021, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Theme: Envisioning a Brighter Future. In attendance, distinguished keynote speaker panelists, Dr. Faye Samuels, K. Chinwanfo.